This is the Untitled Film Project Podcast with Jim Chandler, Jeremy K. Gover, and Justin Bradford. And today we're talking Buzz Lightyear, Elvis, and our special question.
This is our first double episode, Jim, where we're discussing two movies, and because it's summer movie season, right? So it's one of those things where like we can't have a dedicated episode to every single major movie that comes out. So we wanted to discuss two in one plus villains, and we had great responses. I know Gover and I got some great replies on Twitter on favorite villains. Even people arguing back and forth, like, does favorite mean you like them or favorite mean you thought they were the best? I can't wait to get to that. But first, let's go ahead and start off with Lightyear. This is the Pixar film, that Disney Pixar film that just released, based on the man Buzz Lightyear, not the toy Buzz Lightyear, but Buzz Lightyear, the man, which the toy is based off of, which is the film that Andy saw, which made Buzz Lightyear become a favorite of his. They introduce it all, and it's been hilarious to me to see the comment threads on some of these posts of people that still don't get it. I mean, you don't have to like it, but they don't get it and the reasoning why they went with this film. Gover, especially you, because animated films tend to be family targeted. This one, I felt like this was a little more older targeted more towards millennials and older Gen Z, people that grew up with Toy Story that are now adults that have families. Just overall, what was your take on this film as well, too, overall as a film in itself and what it referenced?
Well, every animated film except for maybe South Park, bigger, longer, uncut. That was probably not a solid family choice if you took your
Family
9 or
Guy
10-year-old to well, Family Guy's not a movie, have they? If they have, I've missed it.
Blue Harvest.
Very disappointed. Well, okay, but I meant in the theater.
Yes.
Okay, fair.
Theatrical release.
South Park was amazing, by the way. I'm not a South Park fan, but that's neither here nor there. Lightyear was tremendous for me. I love the fact that they set it up with an opening slate of this is the movie Andy saw in the year that Toy Story came out. That was really, really cool. I also really liked the different ways that they incorporated Tim Allen's lines of the original movie, for example, into this one. Disney Pixar, of course, hit it out of the park like they always do. I mean, it's kind of like a, when Spielberg and Tom Hanks were in their heyday, you'd never go into a Tom Hanks or Spielberg movie and be like, am I going to like this? Even if it's not your jam, you're like,
this isn't going to be any good.
Yeah. I tried to walk into the theater with my popcorn bucket, and I get my comfortable seat, and I get all ready to go. Turn my phone on, vibrate, all that stuff, and I try not to have the mentality of this is going to be great or this is going to be terrible or some sort of expectation. I try to keep it as evenly as possible. With this one, however, again, because of their historical record, it was very hard to think, well, at least I'm going to at least respect this movie. Even if I don't care for it because it doesn't hit me or whatever, I'm really going to respect it. And I will say that it was, I got a lot out of it. I'm glad I went. I'm glad I saw it on the big screen, and I'm glad I went and took my son. I'll leave it at that for now.
Yeah, so it sounds like you had a better first experience than I did.
Well, yeah,
but
the
movie theater.
It does kind of hurt when the electricity goes off in your theater, though. That does hinder the movie.
Okay, I will say it's not going to adjust my bias or anything for it, but for those that don't know, it was summer Fridays for my work, and so off on Fridays, and AMC has really loaded it up with morning shows. I mean, there were 8 a.m. shows, 9 a.m. shows for not just Lightyear, but Top Gun, and there were 3 people that went to see Top Gun at 8 in the morning.
When it's not the summer and I have those days off, like those Mondays, I work from home, right? So if I have like a Monday off or a Friday off, and it's like April something, and there's not those movies, like there's no show times, those early show, like the first show times at like 3 in the afternoon, it sucks. I would love there to be a constant 9 or 10 a.m. show. That'd be great.
Oh yeah. So I'm going to a 10 a.m. Lightyear show. It's like I had to take my wife to work. Her car was in the shop. And so it's like 10 a.m. is perfect. I can get breakfast. I can go to the theater. And my alarm system's going off. My weather radio is going off. I check Nashville severe weather on Twitter, and it's like, oh, there's storms coming. I'll just get to the theater. It'll be fine. I will get my popcorn. I check in. I get my drink. I'm in the middle of filling up at the Coke Freestyle. The power flickers, and I'm like, uh-oh. I couldn't even fill up the cup. It flickers.
During the freestyle?
Yes.
Oh, man. Insult to injury.
I know. So It goes off, and it's all families there too. And we're just like, oh, well, it's probably going to come back on. It's a theater. It's going to be fine. It comes back on for maybe 5 minutes or so. The freestyle machines are rebooting. And for those that don't realize, the freestyle machines are a computer. And it takes a while for them to boot up. I guess it's like reticulating splines, getting the mixture set, all that stuff. And it's so close. This one mom is there with her toddler, ready to just finish filling up her cup. And you see the percentage bar at like 95%. The power goes off again. You hear, oh, come on.
No.
Thwarted.
So it is pouring down rain. The wind is blowing, so much lightning. I'm like, the power's not coming on anytime soon. They evacuate everybody from all the different theaters within. So everybody's in the lobby. I'm just munching on my popcorn. Oh, the one time I can go on a Friday morning to see a show, this happens. It lasts for like 45 minutes. It's still storming. They end up giving readmit coupons to everyone that was standing there. So I'm lucky. At least the movie didn't start. That would suck even more if you're like 30, 40 minutes into a show and you're invested, you're in it. You've like let yourself be released into a film, whatever it is. At least it happened before. So I wait and wait and wait. The app still shows theater closed. Finally, at like 1 o'clock in the afternoon, it's open. I take the coupon and go and see a 2:30 show, and I see it. So I just wanted to explain the situation I had to go through.
So you were there all day.
Pretty much. But for me, there's always that expectation with Disney Pixar that there's going to be more to it than just a simple film. There's going to be some story. There's going to be some lessons that are going to be learned. There's going to be something that makes it to where adults and children can both get something out of this film.
Comedically, and there's going to be heart.
Absolutely, there's going to be heart. So for me, this is not my favorite Disney Pixar film, and because there's so many out there, right? So that's not saying much. I thought it accomplished what it needed to. For me, in terms of the heart part of it, I don't want to use the word lacking because I feel like it takes away from it. I want a little more heart from it. And I know that some people may disagree with me, but in terms of really connecting to make me want to cry tears of joy or like fist pump, something like that, I felt like I wanted a little bit more from that. But there's still plenty of life lessons. There's still plenty of things to make you connect to characters, connect you to Buzz, to connect you to his best friend and how she was aging through her family life and everything like that too. I thought there was plenty of that. I just wanted just a little bit more.
I would say that ever since Up, really, you can go all the way back to Toy Story if you really want to, because there's definitely emotions in that. But ever since Up, I have pretty much walked into any Pixar movie knowing that despite my best efforts, I will be emotional at some point. And I will say that that is one of the things that I'll use the word lacking in Lightyear. There were times where I was like, oh, that's very touching or sweet or sad or whatever. But there was never a time where I had to fight back tears. And I thought that was
you're intellectually knowing that, this is an emotion, but you're not feeling that emotion.
Yeah, so I took points off for that, which I know we'll get to our grades here in a minute, our scores here in a minute. But I took points off for that because I thought for sure, okay, right, like, it's a Pixar movie. It's gonna do something to, and there were moments that were great and that were supposed to be hit and all that, but I didn't ever have to brace myself to fight back tears. I was fine.
Right.
So my favorite moment, and this is how you know this movie was made for millennials that grew up with Toy Story, was when Ivan, the automatic, the navigation system shuts down, Buzz takes it out and blows in the cartridge like a Nintendo.
Yes.
That was my favorite moment in this film because I was like, haha, the right people will get this. The right people will get that. That was my favorite moment in this entire movie because it's that little bit of just acknowledging who this movie really is for. Like, children are going to enjoy it. Kids are going to enjoy it. But in order to get the adults to get into this movie, those little jokes like that, and those little plays on things really get you to go into like, okay, they get me. They get me.
Totally,
that moment right there.
I felt blowing the cartridge of my Nintendo 64 Coleco football.
Coleco! Wow!
Yeah. So, I mean, it's those little touches that Pixar does so well.
See, this is the thing. See, like, if you've listened to the show for any length of time, I don't like predictability, right? So, but here we are again. Disney Pixar has a formula that works, and they introduce Socks, the robotic cat. Okay, and you think, okay, this is going to be, well, yeah, but this is going to be, well, I'll get to that in a second. This is going to be a comedic relief character who's robotic and who is going to just, it's going to break the awkwardness or the silence or the tension at all these different points. I knew that, and he was still hilarious. So, it was really, really good. The merchandise thing I want to say before we move on to our scores is I really hope, this is in the trailer, so I'm not spoiling anything, but if I really, really hope that Disney makes a white noise machine, a sound machine, as Socks with his mouth open. Because
it'd be hilarious.
I turned to my son, he's 10, for those who don't know. I turned to my son right when that happened. Again, it's seen in the trailer. But I turned to him and I go, I hope they make one of those because
you'll buy
one of those tomorrow. Yeah, oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
it'll be on every trip we go on.
There's going to be a YouTube 10-hour looping video of Socks.
But admittedly, that's not the same as a robotic cat on your hotel nightstand.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
So a couple things before we get to our scores that I wanted to touch on was first time dilation, because they get into some science here that reminded me a little bit of Interstellar. There are some pretty deep topics in terms of the dialogue, and the writing was built for an older audience.
Sure.
And that's totally fine. This is nothing against them. It's like they realize that animated films aren't just for families or for children anymore. There is a complete target audience of adults that truly do enjoy Pixar films, that truly do enjoy animation. And I respect them for that, for making this movie have dialogue that is meant for older folks. So you see that with time dilation. You saw it with like the Interstellar thing of the aging process, of how you don't realize what time's passing by. That's a huge topic. So it's a big deal right there too, because that's opening up a whole conversation topic of time and relativity of time that you can discuss with a child. The other thing, and this is controversial, but obviously we know there's been plenty of talk about two moms in this film, and people making a big deal out of something that is so low in terms of what they're trying to accomplish here. It's just showing acceptance and representation of a child that might grow up with two moms. It's simple love that they're showing on the screen. So I want people to understand that it's just showing love. We see heterosexual kisses all the time. This isn't even a kiss on the lips. It's showing a life that somebody may grow up with, just like we saw in Doctor Strange.
Kind of a matter-of-fact relationship.
It's just that, there's nothing like being forced or anything like that too. And it's just briefly addressed. But anyways, Gover, your score for Lightyear.
My score for Lightyear was a 7.
Okay.
I thought it was good. Again, I'm glad I saw it in the theater. Probably won't own it, but if my kid fell in love with it, I'd probably buy it. On digital or Blu-ray or whatever. And
you'll have it on Disney Plus. It's okay.
Yeah. But I use that as a criteria, right? Would I go spend more money on it? That's what I'm trying to, right? So I use that as part of my score criteria. I give it a solid 7. Not my favorite Pixar movie by any means. I don't even know if it's in my top 10, to be honest, but it was a really cool harken back to Toy Story. Kind of gave you the fact that it's backstory of a major character in a Pixar franchise is reason enough to love it. Because then you're like, oh, you start to understand why Woody felt the way he did, how different the two types of media are, like how that character came to be.
Right.
You start to, why did he want that Buzz Lightyear toy? Why was it so cool? Like, there's just so many things that were really neat about it. So I smiled the whole way through, but I would not say that I left the theater wanting more.
It's fair. Okay, for me, I'm right with Gover. I give it a 7. Solid Pixar film, not by any means my favorite. It didn't disappoint me. I think it did its job. It had a little bit of heart, had some funny moments, and that's what I'm looking for, is just something that's going to entertain me. Was it entertaining? Yes. So we saw Buzz Lightyear with hair. Oh my God. We had some great comedic relief, some great voice acting as well too, and deeper storylines. We're seeing that more and more with animation, getting deeper storylines. So I appreciate that they did something that's taken another step. It's not just creating a family film, it's creating a film that is animated, that is targeting a wide audience, a broad audience, and they went for it. And so I appreciate that, but it's a 7 for me.
I am going to tell you straight out that I love the idea of taking one character from a beloved franchise and giving them the focus, which has been, we've seen that with Disney has done it very well with Star Wars characters. They've done it with WandaVision and the Marvel universe. So I enjoy when we can go deeper into one character. And the fact that, this is a TV show from a movie that was a long time ago. I mean, it gets very meta, and I love that they took that chance and said, let's go there instead of just straight storytelling, which I think we just need more. All that being said, I'm going to surprise you, and I'm going to say I'm going to give it a 6 because I felt it was a little plastic for the same reasons you guys said. I liked it, but it will not stick with me. So for that reason, I'm going to give it a 6. And that's because I give Pixar, I expect a lot from them.
What did you think? How did Lightyear hit you? I assume since you're listening to this show that you, in this episode, that you've already seen the film. What did you think of Lightyear? We want to know your thoughts. They can follow us on social media at
Untitled Film Project everywhere. We keep it simple. Just type it in, you're going to find us.
Hi, I'm Pop Migs.
And I'm Charlie.
We are the hosts of Collector Chatter,
Every week we chat about Funko news, rumors, NFTs,
Funko topics, and collectibles as a whole.
We even dive into all your favorite genres, including Marvel, Star Wars, DC, horror, you name it, we chat about it.
You can find us and subscribe on YouTube at youtube.com/collectorchatter and follow us on Instagram at collectorchatter.
And of course, you can listen to us wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts. Now let's chat.
All right, let's move on to a hunka burner movie.
I hope that the Elvis impressions end right now.
Are you trying to say that the Elvis impression that I'm making is not good?
Well, Jim's just not an Elvis fan, period.
Yes. So let's
we'll
start with that. So I went in with a chip on my shoulder.
A little bit.
I totally.
Before you begin,
Yes.
let me break in real quick, Jim, because this is a very interesting dynamic for our audience. Okay, so Elvis, there's somebody on this panel who's very excited about it. There's somebody on this panel who does not care for Elvis at all. And then there's Bradford. I don't know where he falls. So you have a very, very wide range of expectancy / kind of in tune to the movie and subject matter. Yeah. So it's really, really neat. So I'm very, very excited to hear everybody's thoughts because the fact that you don't care for Elvis at all, Jim, and then, Bradford and I are in another camp, that makes it very interesting to me. So I just wanted to set that up. I thought it was very important.
Yes, it's very important because it's going to change possibly your expectations going into the movie. So while I acknowledge Elvis for, completely changing the world and being the pop icon and being super talented, it just wasn't, Elvis was never for me. By the time I was old enough in the age of reason, he was already a drug addicted, kind of strange dude on the Elvis Las Vegas Strip. So he held no appeal to me or people around me. I didn't have Elvis fans. So I'm like, I acknowledge him, but I just don't care. Went into this movie thinking it was going to be a little more of a historic piece. Find out very quickly, didn't do my research going in. It's a Baz Luhrmann film, which he does extended 2.5-hour music videos. And he's very good at being Baz Luhrmann-y. So I appreciated the fact.
Your adjective for the day.
Yes. Yeah. Try to use it in your everyday conversations, listeners. I really liked his approach because it wasn't really a documentary. It was like a long music video. And what he also did was, I think, something very clever. Obviously, whoever's going to have to play Elvis is taking on the biggest role imaginable. And the way Baz Luhrmann produced and directed this movie, he introduced us by just seeing glimpses of him at first, hearing little bits and pieces of him in his earliest days, so that we were becoming acclimated to not only the times of what it was like back before Elvis became hugely worldwide popular, but also he was slowly letting us get used to the fact that there is an actor that's going to be playing him. And by the time they show enough of Elvis to, kind of take in, I had already bought into the fact that this is Elvis. So hats off to them for making him seem realistic to me. And I enjoyed the movie.
I enjoyed the film too because, well, one, I enjoy what Baz Luhrmann does. So Moulin Rouge is one of my favorites. I love that, and I even joked with the Jim we're watching the movie. Now, if they're not singing on top of an elephant, then I'm just disappointed. Either way, it's like they set the scene though when we were screening this film, Jim.
Yeah,
and that they didn't have the air conditioning working, and it was very warm, and people are having to use pieces of paper as flyers to get the air moving and everything. It's like we were in Memphis or Mississippi.
Here's what I've learned from this episode. Don't go to the theater with Bradford right now because everything is going to go wrong. The electricity is going to go out. The air conditioning is going to go out. What is going on?
Anyways, I really did enjoy this film, and it was because of the casting and the writing and the cinematography. Austin Butler, as Jim was discussing, I think did an incredible job as Elvis, because what I like about the casting of Austin Butler, one, he wasn't this big name.
Yep.
But you already know a lot about him. You already know what his voice sounds like because there's already talk about, there's discussion about casting Harry Styles. Well, Harry Styles is Harry Styles.
Right.
And you would be looking at him as that Harry Styles playing Elvis, not just Elvis.
I
like
had
the
to be
direction
somebody who was not a whole household name.
Exactly. And Austin Butler is really singing in this film. That's really him. But what I enjoyed about it with the mannerisms, with the vocals, is they didn't get an impersonator. They got someone to portray the persona of Elvis on the big screen. And I felt that was really important, is to make you believe that this was Elvis, but not, doesn't have to look exactly like him. Doesn't have to sound exactly like him. He is expressing himself as the persona of Elvis, which is very, very important for this film to not come off as gimmicky or anything like that. Because if you had someone that they were going full bore impersonator, it's going to be a gimmick. Here, they got someone who can play the role. I think the makeup artist did really well too, and using the makeup control with what Elvis looked like and portraying him as well too on stage with sweat dripping down his face and everything too. I really did enjoy just the cast in Priscilla with Olivia DeJonge. As Priscilla, I thought she was great in that role. They had a lot of good on-screen chemistry. They really did put a focus on how Black culture inspired Elvis in his dancing, in his music, everything from rhythm and blues to the clubs in Memphis to gospel at church revivals. They put an immense focus, and they kept reverting back to that. It wasn't like it was just, okay, we're going to do this in Act 1 and not talk about it ever again. No, throughout the entire film, there was a focus on how Black culture and Black music inspired Elvis and continued to inspire him throughout
his how important career. It was. Every step of his career, he was fighting to keep that in his act.
Yes.
To be himself and be his roots. Whereas Colonel Tom Parker, his manager, played by Tom Hanks, who's always trying to steer him into be something safe America can latch onto and say he's a good boy. And that was the problem, that Elvis had throughout this movie, is trying to stay true to himself and not be always led by somebody who was trying to change him.
I thought the third act did drag a little bit. Understandable that they have to cover so much in a career like Elvis, especially making it a biopic, but also a full-on music video and not be a documentary, trying to cover so much. I like how they handled his death. I like how they didn't just drag it on so much that you saw him get into fat Elvis, that you had him dying on a toilet or anything like that. They just kind of ended it at a good point to tell the story, because that's all we need to know. We know the story of Elvis. This was to show more and more about it. And it really did make you hate the Colonel so much with his treatment of Elvis. Whether it's true or not, Tom Hanks played a good villain role in this as well too, and it was creepy how good he was in this role too.
I want to talk a little bit about. I want to give some credit to the movie and one detraction. I never thought I would be saying this, but my one problem with Elvis the movie was Tom Hanks' accent. His acting was phenomenal, but the whole time he was Tom Hanks doing an accent. And that was a major detraction for me. And I never thought I'd say that about Tom Hanks. But I will say this. Well, I don't know if this was some clever Baz Luhrmann direction of how he wanted us to see Elvis in his later years. But here's where I got to give him credit. The moment Priscilla Presley and Lisa Marie, his daughter, leave his life, the film changes from this brilliant 4K UHD awesome experience to grainy historical footage look. And it finishes the movie that way. From then on, it looks like you're watching footage that was sitting in a film canister somewhere.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that was whether to cover up a bad makeup job of fat, drug addicted Elvis, or if it was just like his life is a blur at that point. So I thought that was a really unique artistic way to end the movie.
Filmmakers use symbolism all the time, right? So I naturally assumed this is Baz Luhrmann's way of, I mean, it was clearly a point where this event happens and then all of a sudden we as the audience view it differently. It's a, like the visuals are different. And so I thought that was a very poignant choice. I thought it was very interesting creatively. And if there's one thing we can say about Baz Luhrmann at all, it's that he pushes the creative boundaries for sure.
Yes.
And with everything he's done, whether it be Moulin Rouge or Romeo and Juliet or whatever, maybe even The Get Down on Netflix. So it was a really, really cool moment. And it didn't hit me as blatant. It hit me as more of a subtle, even though clearly you can see it, you notice it. But I mean, it didn't hit me until afterwards that, oh, that's why that happened. And I applaud that. I applaud that.
All right, final take from me before we get to our scores, because it's on music. But it's because Baz Luhrmann and music is so big in his films and his take on it, because he's taking traditional rock and roll and rhythm and blues and modernizing them. And that's with Elliot Wheeler, who partnered with Baz Luhrmann, just like he did in The Great Gatsby, which you're taking modern classics and spinning them and putting some trap beats on them.
Very contemporary.
Very contemporary.
Yep.
And it's such an awesome soundtrack to go and listen to because of their take on music too. And well, it's Elvis. It is a music film. Music can be very important. So I'm glad I didn't get eye rolls as much from the two of you on this, because music plays a vital role in this. And you hear it so much about this film of these underlying beats and everything too, to modernize the film. Gover?
It's hard to complain and roll my eyes at music, Bradford, when you talk about it, when this whole film is literally based around a music superstar. So
yes,
you're damn right.
You do get a pass today. Next week,
thanks.
maybe not so much, but today you get a pass.
We saved the eye rolls this time.
Well, Jim, let's go to you. What is your score for Elvis?
Elvis was a terrific movie for somebody who doesn't like Elvis. My only detraction really was Tom Hanks' accent. I thought, I'm not a big Baz Luhrmann fan. Sometimes he's too out there, but I liked it. So I think my 7.5 is a very generous score for a non-Elvis fan.
For me, I think, honestly, if the theater had been a little bit cooler, it might have helped me enjoy the experience more.
You can't hold that against the film.
I know,
Bradford.
I'm not. That's what I'm trying to make sure I preface that, because I was just like ready to get out because it was so warm in this theater, but trying to give respect to the film. And so with that, I'm giving it an 8 because I really enjoyed the cinematography. I know people are like, oh, music film. Do I really need to see it in the theater? No, this is a movie that if you enjoy music, if you enjoy Elvis, or even if you don't enjoy Elvis, you enjoy biopics or anything of that matter, just for the cinematography purposes and the music, it is worth seeing in a movie theater to enjoy it with other people. Because I know when Jim and I were there, the general public was in there for screening too, and they were reacting to a lot of things. And that's what's always neat about those types of things, is hearing how other people are reacting to moments in a film when they're there, when we're there trying to critique it. They're reacting to moments in Elvis's life or to certain songs or things like that too. So that's what I'm taking from it. And I really do think, especially since Elvis's family has enjoyed it, I think people are going to end up liking this movie as long as they go in knowing what it is, that it's not a documentary. It's a glorified biopic that's supposed to entertain you through music and through cinematography. So I give it an 8.
What about you, Jeremy Gover? Did it entertain you?
It entertained me a lot. I'm a big music fan, a contemporary music fan, as you guys all know. I consider myself a borderline expert about music and like pop music, and so it was highly entertaining to me. Kept my feet tapping the whole time. I was smiling most of the movie, but really the takeaway for me is I was thrilled they incorporated and then doubled down and maybe even tripled down on the influence of black music and gospel experiences in Elvis's life. I thought that was tremendous.
Amen to that.
Easily a scapegoat that they could just kind of gloss over and be like, well, they'll just touch on it over here and then we'll build the whole story. No, they kept going. It was really, really great. I gave it a 7.
Very nice.
This episode, we wanted to jump out and grab some of the, how do we say this? The villains of the cinematic masterpieces that we all love to watch. We love movies, of course, and we love the hero story and the anti-hero story even, but we wanted to focus on the villains for this specific topic. So, Jimmy, I think you threw out this question. So would you like to tee up the audience? But before you do, I will say that we tweeted this question out. Usually what we do is we come in unprepared. So one of us will have a question. One of us will have a question, and then we come into the studio and we try to and we spring it on somebody, and then we it's kind of a speakeasy way of saying, how good is your knowledge? It's kind of like that, right? Where we kind of, how good can you be on the spot about whatever the topic is? And so that's usually pretty fun. This particular case, we wanted to make sure that we had the audience's, answers. And so what we did was we all took to our Twitter accounts and we asked the question of what, Jim?
I want to know your favorite movie villain of all time, but with this caveat, they've got to be human. So Darth Vader, fully human. Darth Vader does not count. Freddy Krueger does not count. We need somebody who's just plain villainous as a human being. And I am so anxious to hear who your favorite movie villains are.
So we got plenty of responses on Twitter, so we really appreciate that. And we're going to go through some of those as well. Jimmy, you came up with a question, so why don't you start?
Okay, I am going to go with Anton Chigurh from No Country for Old Men. Not only is that the most epic haircut, which kind of looks a little bit like Darth Vader's helmet if you give it some, generosity. But his ruthless, mechanical-like killing of the people in the movie is like an unbelievable character I've never seen before. The man justifies his villainy by saying, basically, he's just in a movie and your life, whether I kill you or not, is just a coin flip. And that's however it's going to play out. So the man just has no regard for whether you live or die. It's just a flip of a coin. And he is very good at what he does. And because he has almost like a part of his brain removed that would give him some remorse, he is one of the scariest villains I've ever seen on the screen in human form.
We're going to get to your comments here in a minute, but because you just said that one from No Country for Old Men, I want to go ahead and say Captain Mayhem, Peyton Turnage, and DARP 0518 all said Anton Chigurh. So you're not alone in that one, Jimmy.
That's great. And hats off to Javier Bardem, who played the role. This was his big coming out party to a lot of the general movie audience, and just crushed it. Justin Bradford, your favorite movie villain?
All right. Well, first of all, I want to get to some tweets that came in as well for me. There were plenty of Jokers, like all 3 Jokers in terms of Nicholson, Ledger, and Phoenix. That comes from Bradley Moyer.
And all the Jokers then, because there is a Joker missing named Jared Leto.
Yes.
Okay, let's it's Morbin time. Then I like how Family Man here has Hans Gruber in there. DJ has Christopher Walken as Hatcher in the Rundown as well.
Ooh,
interesting.
So Senator Palpatine, Darth Sidious.
Yes.
Another one. Let's see. Buford T. Justice and Smokey and the Bandit.
Nice.
That's a great left field.
A few of those. That's from Sean. But so for me, if someone did bring up a good question on when they say favorite villain is a villain that we like or a villain that does a good job of being a villain. And I'm taking it as the latter, as a villain that you hate. For me, I'm going, and somebody else also said this on Twitter. A couple of people, Chris said this as well. Dolores Umbridge.
From the Harry Potter.
Dear God, do I
universe.
hate that woman. I hate that woman so much, to the point that I want to throw stuff at my screen when I watch Order of the Phoenix. She's so good at being bad while trying to look like she's doing it while being nice. Like, in terms of villain, she's a classic villain in that matter too, that she thinks she's doing good and fully, if so much believes what she does that she doesn't think she's a bad person. And so she's a great villain. She's portrayed so well in the film, but obviously in the books too, to make you hate her guts so much.
That makes the best villain, though, I think, is when they believe in their cause.
Yeah.
Right.
And Gover.
I had a lot of fun with this one because it was my immediate answer, and I also knew the second I wrote it down, you guys would not answer the same way. So that's why I was very confident in going last.
Okay.
My honorable mention, first, before I get to my actual answer, my honorable mention is Owen Davian, who is Philip Seymour Hoffman's character in Mission Impossible 3. He's tremendous. Okay. He plays him very, very well. He plays the whole range of emotional spectrum, and it fits. It's just absolutely flawless casting. And so that's the honorable mention. But my go-to immediate answer when Jim threw out this question is Mitch Leary from In the Line of Fire.
Oh.
John Malkovich plays Mitch Leary in the Line of Fire, and he is the only villain to this day I've left the theater scared of. So I walked out of the theater in real life and thought if I ever saw him, if I saw that guy on the street, I would be calling 911 and probably piss myself. That was John Malkovich's portrayal of Mitch Leary in The Line of Fire.
Well, I really thought you were going to say Gargamel for a second.
No. I'm not entirely sure he's all human, actually. There's a Smurf center. So other people tweeted in with me, so I'll just run down these lists. So Mr. Misconduct said Kaiser Soze, the usual suspects, of course.
Okay, yeah.
I will admit that I considered him as my honorable mention, but I rooted for him. So like throughout the movie, so I disqualified him for that.
If you want him to get away with it, maybe he's not as villainous as you think.
Right, exactly, yeah. Kent Peters said Prince Humperdinck from Princess Bride.
Yes.
Rob S. Martin 9 threw out Hans Gruber, Die Hard. I think you mentioned that one, Bradford. Joel Kidder and Jack Woods both suggested Hans Landa from Inglourious Bastards, which is a great one.
Christoph Waltz is amazing.
Yes, he is. Michael Compton said Frank Booth from Blue Velvet, which I thought was a very outside-the-box answer and a very good one.
Yes.
And then B. Vincent 23 said Eric Killmonger from Black Panther, which is hard to argue. He's one of the top 5 villains probably in the last decade, for sure. But again, I didn't leave the theater scared of Michael B. Jordan, right? I did leave the theater scared to see John Malkovich in person. So I had to give the nod to Mitch Leary.
I got to give an honorable mention to, I don't remember who tweeted it, but Miss Trunchbull from the movie Matilda.
Oh, yes.
Oh, good one.
That's a fun villain.
That's
a very fun villain. So can we agree that most of these people that we've chosen and our listeners have told us, a great villain is played by a great actor? I mean, we're talking really people with chops. John Malkovich, you're talking, Javier Bardem, and just all these people that we've mentioned. Christoph Waltz. I mean, just wow. Those people are so good at what they do. So to play a villain that people remember takes somebody with chops.
But it also takes good writing, right? You can't have, you could have a great actor in a role.
Yeah.
We talked about that on the Jurassic World Dominion episode where you have Chris Pratt in there and, the amazing talents of Bryce Dallas Howard, and you have all, but they were just given garbage. And so,
True.
So you can have a great actor all you want, but if the writing's not there and the character development's not there, it can only do so much. So yeah,
I think based on what Gover has said, we're going to have another question to spin off of this, which is going to be something in a future episode of an actor that's done the best with the worst script, or an actor, a really great actor that was in an awful movie. One of those things. I think we have plenty that we can utilize with what
Catwoman episode done. Let's move on.
But I think you planted some really good seeds for some future questions there too, Gover.
All credit goes to Jim. All credit goes to Jim.
So thank you for hanging out with us here on the Untitled Film Project Podcast, where we talked about Buzz Lightyear and also Elvis and some really great villains. The input from you, our listeners, is always appreciated. And please subscribe and, review us well. Be kind. And, thank you so much for joining us. I am Jim Chandler.
Justin Bradford.
Jeremy K. Gover.
And this is the Untitled Film Project Podcast.
Thank you for listening to the Untitled Film Project Podcast. To support the show, please rate, review, follow, and subscribe. Original music by Jeremy Schwartz. Special thanks to the Music City Film Critics Association. Editing and post-production by Jeremy K. Gover. Voiceover by Chad Bennett. The Untitled Film Project Podcast is presented in cooperation with iHeartRadio.